Do you realize that you're not having fun at work anymore? You know, the feeling when you just started, everything was very exciting, but now it seems like it's repetitive, it's mundane. Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you how I overcame this with two methods. Hey, what's up guys? Jaden here. Welcome back to another YouTube video. In today's video, I want to discuss something that I think will resonate with a lot of you, which is how to deal with tasks that needs to be done, but it's very mundane, it's very repetitive, and these are usually the tasks that you used to enjoy, but right now you just lost that kind of excitement, that kind of enjoyment when you're working on this kind of work. So to share a little bit of context and a little bit of my personal problems I had when I started working online, this was 5 years ago, everything was new. I was learning about online marketing, I was learning about SEO, I was learning about different strategies, different tactics about SEO. I was working on client projects that is new. I'm exposed to industries that are new to me. And so everything was very exciting, right? And I was learning so much stuff. And what happens is, if you do something for, I've been doing this for the last 5 years. So if you're doing something for 5 years, usually the task that you do becomes repetitive. It becomes very mundane, right? So what happens was I find myself in a very vicious cycle. And I'm going to show you the cycle on screen. So what happens, right? It's you have to do the work, right? And usually this work, it's the work that you have to do it on a daily basis, right? To either sustain your business or to sustain your income, right? But this is the work that is usually repetitive, it's very mundane, right? So depending on what role you're in, depending on what business you're running, usually there's a lot of repetitive tasks that is in your work, within your work. So I needed to do all this work. And when I needed to do this kind of work, because it was very repetitive, because you kind of know what to expect already, right? If you have been doing something for the last 5 years, you already know what to expect. You already know what problems you're going to find, right? 95% of the time, you're going to find the same problems. And 95% of the time, the solutions are the same, right? So you kind of already know what to expect. There's no unknown there, right? There's nothing new, right? And what happens is I find that my output becomes very subpar. Like the quality of work that I was doing, because it was very repetitive, I don't have to put in a lot of thought into it, right? Because it was very mundane, it was very repetitive. And what happens is I become very ineffective in the work that I was doing, right? Because let's say the work takes probably an hour, right? But I don't like to do this kind of work. Usually I postpone it. Usually I get distracted because, like I mentioned, it doesn't take that much brain power. It doesn't take that much cognitive function for you to do a work that you have been doing consistently, right, on a daily basis. So the work I do become ineffective because number one, I either take way too long, spend way too much time, or just the quality of the work that I'm doing is just not that effective anymore, right? And what happens is because I know that this is ineffective work, it's going to give me frustration, right? And I'm not sure about you, but this is what I personally feel. Like I know that the work I need to do needs to be quality work in order for me to be satisfied, in order for me to be fulfilled, right? But because of the work that I'm doing, it's mundane, it's repetitive, it's boring. The output that I've given will be very subpar, leads to ineffective work, which I know, which leads to my frustration. And guess what? I have to do the work, right? Because like I mentioned, this work needs to be done, right? So this whole cycle keeps on continuing and continuing. So I'm not sure if you guys feel the same way as I do. I still do at moments, but I found two methods that work really well for me, and I'm going to share them with you guys, and hopefully this will be able to help you as well. So what are the two methods? And it's actually very simple. I find that a lot of things that I learned over the course of my working years, usually the simplest concept is usually the one that works the best, right? So the first is to make things fun. Second, to make things meaningful. Okay, so what do I mean by making things fun? The reason why anyone who starts something new, it's going to be exciting. It's because they are in a state where they are almost playing in a sense, right? Because everything is new to them. They are figuring out what doesn't work, what works. And if something works, that's even more satisfying. That's even more exciting, right? But you're kind of in a playground where you are trying to make sense of everything. You're trying to learn as much as possible. And your mind is at a place where it's not knowing what to expect, right? Because you don't know the solution. You're trying to figure out things. And when you are in a state of having fun, naturally the work that you do becomes more quality in a sense, because you want to try to figure out what's the best way that you can do this, right? And the more you are involved in this, playing, this playfulness state of mind, the work that you do naturally becomes better. Do you realize that you have the most fun when you're learning something new? Like, I always thought to myself, every role that I was in the past, I have the most fun when I was new at something, right? Because this was the stage where I'm learning the most. And so to really give you the most amount of quality output to make your work effective, and at the same time not make work very mundane, is to make things fun. And in order for you to make things fun, you have to learn. Like, I figure this out when I ask myself, when was I having the most fun? And why was I having the most fun? And it all boils down to learning, right? In order to make things fun, you have to learn, all right? Like, it's as simple as that, guys. So what you can do, it's on a daily basis. What I would do is I will assign a specific time so that I can learn either on the existing skill that I have, or either on the existing process that I have, or it can be from a course, a YouTube video, a book. But you have to allocate a time for you to learn, right? And when you're working on that mundane task, there are still things for you to learn as well, like something that you're missing out on this entire process, right? But the main key thing here is you need to make things fun, right? So for example, if I'm working on a project, right, for a marketing project for one of my clients, for one of my partners, the work that I do is going to be the same, right? But is there any other ways that I can do to improve this process, to find out if there's any ways that can work better than this? And naturally that will put me in a state of, I'm in a playful stage again. I'm trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what are new ways that we can do this, right? And this makes the entire work process becomes more fun, right? And you don't have to do this like on a daily basis, because if this is a process that you need to do on a daily basis, right, you can't be changing stuff every single day. But what you can do is allocate like maybe one day for you to go through your process and learn what can you make your process a little bit better, right? So the key thing here is you have to allocate the time for you to learn, okay? It can be a day. What I usually like to do is I like to take a day, usually on my off day, where I'm spending like 2 hours, 3 hours to either read a book or take a new course and things like that, right? So in order for you to make things fun, learn. And it says, like, I'm telling you guys, it's as simple as that, right? You have to put your state, you have to put yourself in a state where you are learning. Like when you're a child and everything is new, everything is exciting to you, right? And you can do it with existing tasks and projects that you're already working on, right? It's just that now, like, we don't do it consistently. We don't do it consciously as well. So I would suggest you to assign a time, either on Monday, 12 p.m., for example, or on Saturday in the first half of the day, right? But you have to allocate the time for you to learn, for you to upskill, and for you to be a master at what you're doing. So some forms can be in forms of books, courses, videos, can be podcasts, like blogs, whatever medium that is out there, right? As long as you're allocating a small amount of time, right, for you to learn about your current process, for you to learn what you don't know about your current skill sets, this is how you can make your work better. Because like I mentioned, if you go to work with a lot of friction, with the state of mind that, it's going to be very boring, the output you don't have a good time doing that task. So if you put your state of mind in a place where it's, having fun, when you're learning, the output you give and you provide will be way better, making your work way more effective. And the most important of it all, it's you do not deal with frustration. You do not deal with frustration. You enjoy the work that you're doing, right? So that's first. The second way of how I did it, how I enjoyed my work, is to make things meaningful. And this is very, I don't hear people talk about this a lot, but how to make the most insignificant task meaningful. So let me give you an example. Something like, creating an invoice, right? When I'm creating an invoice and I'm invoicing somebody, right? This task is very insignificant, right? It's just, I'm creating an invoice and I'm sending over the invoice, right? But even small things like that, if you can make small tasks like that, assign a small amount of meaning to these kind of tasks, which is again mundane, repetitive, you're gonna find that you enjoy the overall process of work better. What do I mean? When I'm sending an invoice to a partner, right? To me, yes, it's just sending an invoice, but at the back of my mind, when I'm sending the invoice, it's really an indication of the trust that my partners and my clients have placed in me. And when I'm creating the invoice, which is something that is very, very mundane, is insignificant. However, when I'm creating the invoice, I always remember that this is a trust that my clients and my partners have given me. And so when I'm creating the invoice and sending it over to them, it's an indication of that trust, right? So this is very, very minor, but this gives you more reason to want to do that mundane work, right? Because to me, it's not creating an invoice. To me, it's a confirmation of the trust that my partners have given me. So this is one example. When it comes to my client projects, to me, it's a marketing agreement that we both have went into. Like I'm providing marketing services for all my clients. But when I look at a specific business, right, I don't just see it as a marketing campaign. I see it as a way for me to grow their business, right? And I treat their business as my own business, and the impact of the work that I do directly impacts the growth of their business. And businesses are run by real life human beings, right? So the person that I'm working with, it directly impacts the work that I do, directly impacts their livelihood, right? And if their services are good, which all of my partners, their services are quality, and that's why I take them as clients, the experience of the customers, it's also indirectly impacted by the work that I do. So I don't just look at it as a project that I'm working on. I look at it as a way that, the things that I'm doing impacts this business, impacts the people in this business, and it also impacts the people that this business is serving, right? So this gives me more meaning towards when I look at a project. It's not just looking at a project and then assigning a monetary amount to that project. Because if you do that, it's the work that you do, again, it becomes very mundane, because I'm not just, when it comes to SEO, for example, I'm not just doing SEO, right? Because that is very boring. There's no meaning behind it. But if the marketing that I'm doing, the main goal is to grow their business, is to help this person's livelihood, is to bring better experiences to the people who are going to be visiting this business, then that's way more meaning, and I can be way more involved in the work that I do. And the last example that I can give you guys is, when I'm working with a marketing manager in a project, right? Sometimes I work with founders, sometimes I work directly with CEOs, and sometimes I work with the marketing managers of a brand. And when I work with a marketing manager, I'm not looking at this from a project perspective, but I'm looking at the impact of the work that I do. What I'm trying to do with my work is I'm trying to make sure that the marketing manager that I'm working with, I can support that marketing manager in any way, shape, or form that I possibly can, right? Because as a marketing manager or a director, right, in their role, they're going to be wearing so many hats within their roles, right? And my job, what I want to do is I want to help them remove as much hats as much as possible, at least from a marketing perspective. And I want to support them in the greatest way that we can as a business, right? And so it's not just taking on projects. It's not just writing an invoice, creating an invoice. It's not just changing a page title. It's not just creating a website. It's not just, going on a consulting call, right? Because if you do that on a daily basis, if you do it for years, things are going to get mundane. These things are going to get repetitive. The way that I found to help me enjoy the work that I do, hence increasing the output, increasing the quality, okay, to make things more effective. And I'm happy, and this whole cycle continues instead of the frustration cycle, right? I found that these two methods works the best. You have to learn, upskill yourself even more, and you have to assign meanings to the things that you're doing that really impacts you personally, right? So these are two methods that I found work best for me when it comes to mundane work, when it comes to, really asking yourself, what is it exactly that you're doing, right? Are you just doing sales? Are you just talking on the phone, closing the sales, or are you trying to help this business grow, help this business owner grow in their business? Like, you have to assign things that is more meaningful towards the work that you're doing, especially if it's mundane work. So I would suggest you to take a step back and ask yourself, how can you learn? What are the things that you can learn, right? How do you make it more fun? And secondly, it's what kind of meaning can you assign to the work that you're doing, right? Because you're going to do the work anyway, right? So you might as well make it fun. You might as well make it meaningful, because that is a smart way to do it, because your output will be better, you'll be more effective, and yeah, just happier doing the task. So that is it for today's video. Let me know if this works, and if you like this video, help me press the like button so that more people can see this. And if you're watching the video, if you reach the end, subscribe to the channel so that you'll be notified whenever a new video comes out. And with that being said, that's all. Cheers.